So I'm going to start with probably the simplest one to get our heads around at first look. Rhythmic steps. Wow, there it goes. Now, I've already got a kit loaded here, which is one of the samples from Mars kits, 906. Okay, standard stuff. Now, the first thing you'll notice, which I loved about this, is here are the 4 lanes. One, whoops, ignore me doing that. 1, 2, 3, 4 lanes. And each lane at the start has, you can see, a representation of the 16 square grid that corresponds to our drum rack. That's why, as it says, it's designed, go back to rhythmic steps, to function well with the drum racks. So it's pre-mapped out. So if, for instance, here, this is the chance lane. I'm just going to hit the randomize, there we go, for all of them. And I'm going to assign, see this yellow square moving about the grid. I'm using my mouse just to assign that. So let's, for instance, say I assign, got this bass drum 909 here. I would just put the yellow square into that corner of the kit, and that's going to play that. Now, basically with the chance, what you've got is what percentage, based on the height of these bars, of that note or that step actually sounding. If I just hit play up here, I've just pressed that M, which we can assume is mute, and indeed it is. And what you can see happening now, on that top lane, it's playing, as you can see, it's triggering the play button here on that bass drum sample. And it's not hitting, obviously, every step, every time round, based on the chance you've given each step. It's playing sometimes, some not at all, because you haven't given it any probability, and some you can guarantee it will hit every time by placing it, I'm assuming, up to 100. So for instance, if I just clear that with the X, let's just do the most basic thing of a 4/4 kick pattern. You're going to see that strikes every time, because I've put those bars to their maximum, i.e. given it 100% or made it definite. If I hit that second one down, so it struck that time, but there's way it misses, like, 1 in every 3 or whatever, etc. And by the way, you've got this randomization button. Now let's just, it's a bit crazy at first what we got here. So that's yellow is highlighting this close hat. This next lane happens to be highlighting snare. And what you could do is have everything on a really low probability, maybe just the occasional one. And if I turn the last one on, this is where, no, I won't put that on because that's, let's see, let's find, I'll put that ride. Okay, so that's all going and sounding reasonably crazy right now. Just going to mute that right a second. Now what's really nice about this, if you hit next to chant at the top, the Alt menu, you can see you can now assign a blue square somewhere. So each one of these lanes, you've assigned it with the yellow square to the main sound you want to trigger. But what you can do is have a separate lane for like secondary sounds, which I think is really neat. So it might just do these instead of the main sound. And and this one is currently triggering this tom, which you can sort of start to hear coming in now. If I mute the others. And by the way, there is some description on the info view, so if I hit oh actually alt pad, set the chance that the alternative pad blue is triggered. So you can go through these and you can nothing's being triggered, or rather the alt pad on the second lane isn't being triggered at the moment. But let's choose one. Let's choose clap. Okay, which is there. So move the blue square to that position and start putting some in. And again, chance is going to apply. You're not guaranteeing hits every time. So this way, even with just 4 lanes, you've actually got 8 sounds. So that's half your kit you can choose from. And you can have them, basically the lanes running and kind of varying that patterns based on chance, probability, all the time. Moving along to velocity, well obviously, again, just for speed, just for speed, I gave you a sneak preview of something there. I've randomized the velocity, sorry. Actually, if I just tone down those very heavy bass hits, what I really love, so this is just 2 lanes, but you can hear obviously more sounds because we've got, for instance, in lane 2, we've got both this quite busy hi-hat pattern, which is improved greatly by the velocity randomization. It's got a nice groove to it now, just from the velocity change, and then got the clap going in the background. Let's put that on some offbeats instead. Let's go back to the now. You can do other things like slide and roll. Slide, I mean, maybe if you're using bass, because obviously you can put melodic or sounds or bass samples or whatever into your drum racks and trigger them the same way. So there you could run slides. Obviously won't do much. You're going to need sustained sounds, I guess. And then here on the roll, we should be able to do something here. Let's see, maybe on the, let's turn this, let's turn the snare back on. And again, what you've got to remember is when you're placing these aren't, you're not guaranteeing steps will hit, you're raising or lowering the probability that they'll hit. So if you want one for sure in every place, every time, in a specific place every time, there you go. At the moment it sounds to me like a bit electro-y, breakbeaty, which is the kind of thing I'd expect to come out. Timing, see, time shuffling, interesting. Wow, global amount, clock speed. First thing to do is clock speed, 50%, 66%. So this is just the proportion, I guess, of the tempo, which is interesting because obviously you're going to have other things running at tempo in your project, and then you can entirely vary the patterns here. Relation to everything else that's going on, I guess. If I just randomize these, so there's a length here. This is how many goes between 1 and 8. So with 8, all of these dials 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 light up, and you can adjust them, and you can sort of play with the time of each division. Let's it's interesting. So obviously they've limited the divisions to 8. So within this, let's go back, within this 16 beat sequence, you're getting a timing variation on every second beat. I mean, probably you only need minor adjustments to really do something interesting with the groove. These are all, I see. So from the center, double click to go back to 0. In fact, if I hit this, you'll reset everything. So I've got 8. Yeah, everything's interesting. It's really interesting. So the main, that makes sense. Okay, so the first one only starts from 0, I guess, because it would be in line with the very first beat of any pattern. Thereafter, these are all allow for minus or plus, i.e. in relation to the beat. Negative or positive values, I should say, percentage-wise, in terms of swing, shuffle, etc. This can get pretty crazy pretty quick. So it gives you a really real feeling of elasticity within the overall groove. And one more thing to mention, so important thing, is the polyrhythmic element. If you see here, this number 16, they're all set to by default. You can change this to anything, even to like weird odd numbers, 8, 16, 7, 3. And you'll see it grays out the non-active steps, which is a pretty nifty visualization of this. So then you're going to get even more variation, because everything in relation to itself is like constantly moving the 4 lanes. So you get to madness pretty quickly, or controlled madness pretty quickly. And then you have these reset functions, so you can hit the R so that everything realigns on the start of the beat in that moment. Or you can have auto to forever on a cycle be realigning those start points. So for instance, every 2 bars, whatever craziness has been created, everything goes back to start on its first beat, every lane. So they'll run kind of on their own time rotations or steps, number of steps you've set, but all fall back in place on the first step of their lanes as you've got it set here every 2 bars. Cool. And then something you can do, by the way, if you want to, should we say, moderate the level of randomization. So if you've hit randomize on each lane to create random patterns, you can then press the 2 die next to it to lessen the randomization, if that makes sense. I think that's the idea. Again, if you hover over things, well, that one's just called the randomize less button. Yeah, everything pretty much has an explainer in its in the usual info area over there in the bottom left corner. And final thing I want to mention, there is where's it gone? This little icon here indicates if a push device is available for controlling rhythmic steps. When available, you can click on this toggle to display instructions. Yes, so I have a push plug-in. Yeah, you can see how it's got the, as indicated on the sort of map, that's to trigger random and reset with the last 3 device buttons. Trigger, random and reset. Okay. And then set manual or auto retrigger. switch tabs. Interesting. Like the menu tabs. Okay. And then set the step values via the push pads. Navigate. Hold select to set the MIDI output note. Oh, that is cool. Okay. Well, I'm not going to test it all out now, but you can see in theory what's possible to give you really hands-on control. That's great.